I have performed at hundreds of weddings in my life. I have sung for thousands of people across Kuwait and beyond. I was never the type of woman who scared easily. This was my job, my passion, and I was very good at it. But after what happened to me and my band on that Thursday night in Al-Subaheya, I never sang again, not once, and I never will. It was 1997. A woman called me and asked me to perform at her daughter's wedding. Thursday night, 10 p.m., 500 Kuwaiti dinars. For a wedding singer at that time, that kind of money was almost unheard of. I said yes without thinking twice. I gathered my band, 6 other women, and that Thursday night, we drove to the address she gave us in Al-Subaheya. When we arrived, I remember thinking how beautiful the house looked. Lights absolutely everywhere. People already dancing and laughing. The energy was electric. We were shown to a private room that had been set up specifically for us. Instruments, space to rehearse, somewhere to sit and get comfortable before we started. Everything felt completely normal. At 10:30, we took the stage and started performing. The crowd loved us. People were dancing, smiling, requesting songs. The parents of the bride and groom kept coming up between sets to thank us personally. It was one of those nights where everything just flows, you know? The kind of performance every singer loves. But as the night went on, the house kept filling up. And I mean filling up in a way that made no sense. I kept thinking, how are this many people fitting inside here? It became almost impossible to move through the crowd, impossible to breathe. But I pushed the thought aside and kept singing. Then around midnight, during one of our breaks, one of my girls leaned close to me with this look on her face that I had never seen from her before. She was not the nervous type, but her voice was barely above a when she said, "Noura, have you noticed something strange about the guests?" I asked her what she meant. "Their skin," she said. "When they come close, feel the heat coming off of them. And look at their faces. It's like they have spikes." I laughed. I told her she was tired and imagining things. But even as I said it, I felt something cold move through my chest, because deep down, I had noticed. I just didn't want to say it out loud. I made a few jokes, kept the mood light so the rest of the girls wouldn't get into their heads and ruin the performance. We went back out and kept singing. It was now well past midnight, and something about the crowd was deeply unsettling me. Nobody was tired. Nobody was leaving. Normal wedding guests by this hour are saying their goodbyes, collecting their children, heading home. But these people were getting more energetic, more demanding, louder. They just kept pushing for more and more music like they couldn't get enough. And then I looked down. I don't know what made me look. Maybe I noticed something moving differently. Maybe God wanted me to see it so I could get my girls out of there. But I looked down at the dance floor, and I saw that the people dancing in front of me did not have human legs. They had hooves, animal legs, every single one of them. I felt the blood leave my face. I felt my voice almost give out completely. I heard the girls around me falter. I could tell they had seen it too because the music started to crack and shake. And in that moment, every single part of me wanted to scream and run. But I didn't. I looked slowly across at my band, and I gave them one calm, steady wink. It meant, "I know, I see it. Keep singing and do not stop." Because I understood something very clearly in that moment. If these things, whatever they were, realized that we knew what they were, we would not be leaving that house. So I kept my smile on my face, and I kept singing like my life depended on it, because it did. We kept performing, song after song, standing on that stage surrounded by jinn pretending to be wedding guests, smiling at us, clapping for us, requesting songs from us. Then one of my girls fainted, just completely collapsed right there. Some of the guests rushed over immediately asking if she was okay. I stayed calm and told them she was just exhausted. It had been a long night. They seemed to accept that. We carried her to the back room, and the moment that door closed, every single face in that room turned to me with pure terror in their eyes. I looked at all of them, and I said quietly, "You already know what they are. They are jinn. And right now, the only thing keeping us alive is making sure they do not know that we know. So we go back out there, and we sing, and we wait. And that is what we did. We went back out. We smiled. We performed. For creatures with hooves and spiked faces and burning hot skin, standing in a house that was somehow holding hundreds of them inside its walls. Then the Fajr prayer began, and the second it did, the temperature dropped so suddenly it felt like the walls had disappeared. And then every light in the house went out at once. Total darkness, total silence. My girls started screaming, and I was telling them stop screaming, while I was reciting Quran as fast as my mouth could move. And then I said one thing: run. We ran through the dark and burst through the front door out onto the street, and I just stood there, gasping. There was an old man nearby, and when he saw us, he looked absolutely horrified. He said, "How did you come from that house?" I told him we had been hired to sing at a wedding inside, that we had been in there all night. He stared at me, then he looked at the house. "There is no wedding," he said. "No one has lived there for 10 years. Everyone in this area knows that house is haunted." I turned around and looked at the house. It was completely dark, completely empty. No lights, no cars, no decorations, no sound. Just an abandoned house sitting there like nothing had ever happened inside it. I looked down at the ground. Sand. Perfectly still, undisturbed sand. No footprints, no tire marks, no trace of the hundreds of guests we had spent the entire night performing for. Nothing. I never sang at a wedding again after that night. I never will. Some doors, once you have seen what is on the other side of them, you do not open again. I used to work weddings as a catering server. It paid well, the hours were predictable, and most of the time it was just boring. Carry plates, refill glasses, smile, disappear into the background. That was the job. I did it for 3 years without a single thing worth talking about, until the Hargrove wedding. It was a Saturday night in late October. The venue was an old estate house about 40 minutes outside the city, one of those massive stone buildings that had been converted into an event space sometime in the 90s. The kind of place that looks beautiful in photographs and feels deeply wrong the moment you walk inside. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, portraits on the walls of people who had been dead for 100 years. The owner used to joke with clients that the house came with its own atmosphere. He wasn't wrong. There were 6 of us on the serving staff that night. Me, 2 other guys named Derek and Marcus, and 3 women, Jess, Priya, and an older woman named Carol, who had been doing this job for 15 years and had seen everything. Or so she thought. The wedding itself was fine at first. Around 120 guests. Dinner service went smoothly. The speeches ran long the way they always do. The dance floor opened up around 9, and people started loosening up. Nothing unusual. Then around 10:30, Derek came into the kitchen and said something that stuck with me. "Have you noticed nobody has left yet?" I looked at him. I said, "What do you mean?" Usually by this point in the night, you get the early departures. Older guests, people with kids, people with long drives home. Nobody has left. Not one person. I told him he was probably just not paying attention. People come and go. It's easy to miss. He shrugged and went back out. But now I was paying attention, and he was right. For the next hour, I watched that room carefully. The same faces, every single time. Nobody getting their coats. Nobody saying their goodbyes near the door. Nobody slipping out. Just the same 120 people, dancing and drinking and laughing like they had nowhere else on earth to be. I mentioned it quietly to Jess during a break, and she got this look on her face. The kind of look that tells you they noticed the same thing, but didn't want to be the one to say it. "There's something else," she said. "Watch their eyes when you pour for them. Just watch." So I did. For the next 20 minutes, I moved through the room, refilling glasses like normal, and I watched their eyes. And I don't know how to explain what I saw, except to say that they were wrong. Not in an obvious way, not Hollywood wrong. Just the reflection in them wasn't quite matching what was around them. Like looking at a screen with a half-second delay. Like whatever was going on behind those eyes was processing the world just a fraction of a moment too slow. I went back to the kitchen. Carol was standing there with her arms crossed and this flat, gray expression on her face that I had never seen from her before. She was the most unflappable person I had ever worked with, and she looked like she had just seen something she was still trying to understand. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "Go look at the guest book by the entrance. Tell me what you see." I walked to the front entrance where they'd set up the wedding guest book on a little table, the kind where guests sign their names and leave a message for the couple. I opened it. The first few pages were normal. Names, little notes, well wishes. But then I kept turning pages, and the handwriting started to change. Still names, still messages, but the ink was older looking, darker. Some of the handwriting was in styles I didn't recognize, old-fashioned cursive that didn't match anything you'd expect from the guests I'd been serving all night. And some of the names didn't look like names at all. Not any language I could identify. I counted the signatures. There were far more than 120. When I got back to the kitchen, Carol was standing exactly where I'd left her. I told her what I saw. She nodded slowly, like it confirmed something she'd already worked out. Then Marcus came in through the side door, and he was pale. Not nervous pale, the kind of pale that comes after something has genuinely removed the blood from your face. He said, "The couple, the bride and groom. Go look at them." We went to the door of the main hall and looked across the dance floor to where the bride and groom were sitting at the head table. They were completely still, not resting, not talking to each other, not looking at their phones, just sitting there completely motionless in the middle of all this noise and movement and celebration, staring forward at nothing, with these small, fixed smiles on their faces that had not moved in I didn't know how long. And nobody around them seemed to notice or care. The guests closest to them just kept dancing, kept laughing, kept talking, rotating around this completely still couple like they were furniture. That was the moment I understood that whatever was happening in that room, it wasn't about the couple. The couple were the only real people left at their own wedding. I went back into the kitchen and I said to everyone, "We are leaving, right now, together. We are walking out the service entrance. We are getting in our cars, and we are driving away." Nobody argued, not even Carol. We walked out the side door in a group and across the gravel lot to our cars. I didn't look back. I could still hear the music from inside, muffled through the stone walls. Still the same song, it felt like. I don't know what it was. We drove, all 6 of us in our own cars in a convoy, just putting distance between ourselves and that place. I called the venue owner the next morning to make sure I still had a job. He answered on the second ring and sounded completely normal. I asked how the rest of the night had gone. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Funny thing, the couple left around 11. Said they were exhausted, just slipped out the back. When the coordinator went to check on the reception a little after midnight, the hall was empty. Completely cleaned out. No guests. And here's the strange part. The catering company left us the final food and drink report, and we barely made a dent in anything. 120 guests for 4 hours, and almost nothing was consumed." He laughed a little when he said it, like it was just a weird quirk of the night. I didn't laugh, because I knew what it meant. Whatever filled that room after a certain point in the night, it wasn't there for the food. It wasn't there for the drinks. I don't know what it was there for. I don't know if the real guests left before we even noticed something was wrong, or if they were replaced one by one so slowly that nobody caught the moment it happened. I quit catering the following week. The couple, the real couple, got divorced 8 months later. I found out through a mutual connection. The person who told me said the bride had described it as feeling like something had been taken from her that night, like she'd arrived at her own wedding and then woken up somewhere else, and the gap in between was just missing. She never could explain it better than that. And honestly, I think that's the most terrifying part of the whole thing. Not what I saw, not the eyes or the guest book or the stillness. It's that whatever was in that room that night left with something, and nobody knows what. I was a DJ at a wedding 2 years ago. Small venue, maybe 80 guests. Countryside location about an hour from where I live. The booking came through an agency, so I never met the couple beforehand. I just showed up, set my equipment, and did my job. The ceremony was outside. I wasn't involved in that part, so I stayed inside the reception hall getting everything ready. I could hear music from outside, people clapping, the usual sounds of a wedding doing what a wedding is supposed to do. Then the doors opened and everyone came in. I started the entrance music. Guests took their seats. Dinner was served. Everything completely normal. I'm in my corner doing my thing, reading the room, adjusting the playlist. Standard night. Around the first dance, I got my closest look at the bride, and something was wrong with her face. I don't mean disfigured or injured. I mean wrong in a way that's hard to put into words. Like when you see a photograph of someone you know, but the proportions are slightly off, and you can't figure out why, but your brain won't stop screaming at you that something isn't right. She was beautiful. She was smiling. But every time I looked directly at her, my eyes wanted to slide away. Like they were refusing to fully process what they were seeing. I told myself I was tired. Long drive. Bad lighting in the venue. I kept working. Then an older woman, a guest, maybe 60 years old, came up to my table around 9 p.m. She leaned close and spoke quietly, and I could tell she was trying very hard to stay calm. She said, "Did you see the ceremony outside?" I told her no. I was inside the whole time. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "The woman who walked back in through those doors is not the woman who walked out to that altar." I felt my whole body go cold. I asked her what she meant. She shook her head slightly and said, "I've known that girl since she was 4 years old. I don't know who that is, but it is not her." Then she walked away and rejoined the crowd, and I watched her for the rest of the night, and she didn't dance, didn't eat, didn't speak to anyone else. Just sat at her table watching the bride with this expression on her face that I can only describe as grief. I have no explanation for what happened that night. I've looked up the couple since then. They have a normal life, social media, photos, the whole thing. The woman in those photos after the wedding looks slightly different from the woman in the photos before it. Maybe it's the hair, maybe it's the makeup, maybe it's just me. But that old woman knew that girl for over 50 years, and she spent the entire night grieving at a wedding. I don't know what walked back through those doors that night, and I'm not sure I want to. If you've experienced something like this, something you can't explain, something that's been sitting in the back of your mind that you've never told anyone, drop it in the comments below. Every story I read, and if yours is one I can't stop thinking about, it might just end up in the next video. I'll see you then. Sleep well.